Good morning. My name is Sabrina Shine. I am a senior career coach here at the Cook County American Job Center. Today, we're going to be reviewing job search strategies, which is creating a plan of action for your job search. So, at the beginning, we're going to start with part one. This is where we're going to talk about preparing for the job search. This is also where we're going to talk about performing a self-assessment. We're going to talk about preparing tools, research, and identifying a target job and industry. In part two of our time together, we're going to talk about actually conducting the job search. So this is where we're talking about establishing goals and expectations. We're also going to look at identifying job openings. We're going to also take a really great look at networking and then submitting the application and resume. And then toward the end, in part three, we're going to talk about evaluating the job search. And this is where you're actually going to assess your strategy. And we're going to talk about questions that only you can answer. So a little bit of the come to Jesus moments with yourself, okay? So as we go back to part one, let's kind of take a look at preparing for the search. This is where, again, we're looking at self-assessment. And so it's really important as you're going through this process to understand what are your interests? What do you like to do? What are you good at? And then also take a look at what are your skills. Now, please understand that just because maybe you haven't been paid for a skill doesn't mean that it's not valid. Okay, so just make sure that you understand that because, sometimes in this work, we kind of think, well, if it's not something I can put on a resume or I haven't been paid for it, then it's not a viable skill. And that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of skills from, our previous life, so to speak, or from our personal life that can translate into professional skills. Okay, so just make sure you keep that in mind. And then also take a look at what type of work environment do you prefer. So we tend to come in contact with a lot of people who want to work in the CDL profession, which is transportation. And I always tell them to make sure that they understand the type of environment that they're working in. Just because you're outside, we don't have a very forgiving weather pattern in this part of the country, but make sure you understand that even in whatever career you may be looking at. So if you're looking at nursing, if you're looking at LPN, if you are looking at even IT, whatever your career interest is, make sure that you understand, the environment that you prefer to work in. Because what will happen is that obviously if you find yourself in an environment that you don't want to be a part of, then you're not going to want to go to work. You're not going to make money, right? So keep that, in mind, okay? And then also, what are your short-term and long-term goals? Short-term can typically be determined by, maybe 6 months or less. And then long-term goals are more 6 months or more. So take a look at that and just kind of see if that is something that, or where you fall within that. And then another thing to consider is industry growth, right? We want to make sure that there is going to be industry growth because, again, it doesn't really make sense to go to training and try to find a job in an industry that may not exist in 5 years, right? So look at that, and then also we're going to take a look at the salary. As we age, sometimes our living expenses increase, sometimes they decrease, but you want to make sure that whatever industry that you choose is going to be salary friendly. It's going to evolve with your lifestyle and with your family's needs as well. Look at benefits. Benefits are another way of payment. So you may be looking for a job that, is $80,000, but you may find one that's $70,000 that has a $10,000 package for benefits as well. So again, keep all of that into consideration when you're looking, because you want to make sure that things are aligning with what you need and what your family may need. Travel is also another aspect to look at when you're looking at employment. Is this a position or is this an industry where I'm going to have to travel a lot? So if you're a person that maybe has small children or, is married or, caring for an aging parent, you may have to take that into consideration. Who's going to care for them while I'm gone? And see if maybe if you choose not to travel, then that's something that you can talk about once you get into your interview, okay? One website to look at here Okay, if you take a look at the screen, it's www.mynextmove.org/explore/IP. Okay, you want to take a look at that because if you look at the information that's on the screen there, you'll actually be able to see that that website goes into a lot more depth. Okay. And so now we're going to look at actually preparing for the job search. So we're looking at the tools, right? What tools are you going to use in order to prepare for the job search? So you want to make sure that you are fine tuning your resume and your cover letter, okay? Make sure that you gather 3 professional references. You don't necessarily have to put them on your resume, but make sure that you gather 3 professional references and then set up your social media to private. Really important because our professional lives and our private lives, they are separate. They should remain separate. You don't want to be judged on something that's occurring in your private life. Um, you don't want that to affect your professional life. So just make sure that those are set to private so that, if someone is looking for, they see, pretty much the bare minimum information. And then, of course, we can talk a little bit more about, social media for networking, which would be LinkedIn. But as far as your regular social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, all of those things, make sure that, again, you are separating your private life from your professional life. Okay. Your phone, please make sure that your professional outgoing message is professional. It's just that you don't want to have a voicemail message that's inappropriate or that someone can look and say, okay, this is not really the kind of person that I would want working for our company. You want to make sure that the professional outgoing message is something to the effect of, hello, my name is Sabrina Shine. I'm sorry I can't speak with you right now. Please leave your name and number, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Really concise, short, sweet and to the point. You don't want something that is going to be, again, inappropriate. So we don't need to have, the dog barking in the background. We don't need to have, something, again, where the language is inappropriate. We also want to make sure that we don't have any music. In the 80s and 90s, that was a cute idea, but again, that is for your personal preferences, not for professional outgoing message. So please make sure that you update that if you haven't already. And then also make sure that you create a tracking system. This is a way to remain organized and a way to really kind of dig into, who you've contacted, the follow-ups, any dates, anything like that that can help you with that. So again, just make sure that you create a tracking system, and we will get into that in just a little bit. Okay. So as we're still preparing for the search, we're going to take a look at looking at a target job market and industry. And to be completely transparent, I also like to say sometimes it's really good to have an industry with several jobs within that target market. You want to make sure that you are developing a specific list of titles of industries and employers. Okay. The employer piece is important, but again, you may not have an idea that some of the employers that do what may be aligning with your career, is that they align. So an example of that is that you may not think about American Airlines for an IT position, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't need IT people. So you want to make sure that you are developing a list with specific job titles. Take a look at the industry and then employers as well. I would suggest to maybe look at the industry first because it's a little bit broader, and then go into specific job titles, and then go into and look at different employers that may have positions that are associated with your career interest. Okay. It's just an easier way to kind of work from broad to more specific. Okay. It's a way to kind of drill it down. If you are unsure of how to do that, one thing you can do is check out the Bureau of Labor Statistics website that is listed here, which is www.b as in boy, L as in Larry, S as in Sam.gov for government / and so you'll be able to find a really good, a really good plethora of information, honestly, that will deal with job titles, that will deal with industries and some possible employers as well. Okay. Also, you need to evaluate, is what you're going into, is that something where you're going to need a certificate or credential? Of course, if that is the case, then you are in the right spot because the WIOA program can help you with that. But also take a look and see, do you need more experience in the field? So again, this is something that I like to kind of really kind of go into with our more seasoned people, right? Because sometimes people will think, well, I've done 25 years in one industry, and now that I'm transitioning, then that experience, it may or may not tie over. So just be aware of that, because what you don't want to do is get yourself caught up into thinking that you're more skilled in a particular profession, particularly a new profession, than what you may be. So just kind of be aware of that, especially if you're transitioning into a new career field. Okay. And then, do you need to work on a specific skill more? So if you are a person that maybe is in a respective industry, so let's just take IT, right? You're an IT person, you've done programming for 20 plus years, and now the industry calls for you to maybe do something else. But that's not something that you've really been exposed to in order for you to get to the next level. So again, you may have to look at some different certifications. You have to look at some different skills within IT. It doesn't mean you have to go and get another degree necessarily, but you do have to beef up your skills so that you are able to be marketable along with the rest of the people that may be applying for those same types of jobs. Okay. So now taking a look at actually moving from preparation to conducting the search. And this is where we're looking at goals as well as expectations. So want to just kind of give you a heads up. It's really important that you know that the average job search really does take about 5 months. Of course, it can be less than that, and I hope it is for you, but it may be more than that. So of course, on average, it may be about 5 months. So if it's taking a little bit longer than you can appreciate, understand it's normal. No worries. We'll get there. It just may take a little bit longer than you anticipated. Okay. And so, one thing to really kind of help you move forward is make sure that you picture the type of job that you want, right? You want to make sure that that you can see yourself doing what it is you say you can do. Um, I've been in education and, of course, in workforce development, for a long time, but for me, if I wanted to transition into, IT or CDL, I would have to kind of picture myself doing that because it's not something that I've done previously. So you have to kind of place yourself, this is a good time to have some quiet time and kind of do an imaginary soul search, right? Just, a little bit of time for you to really kind of picture what it is that you want. Because sometimes when there's a break in employment, when life slows down, it gives us an opportunity to kind of decompress and then take some time to do some soul searching so that we can move into what we may have really wanted to do previously. And then also it may help us to move into, our purpose. So just kind of take a look at that, make sure you're picturing what you actually want to do. Think about some things that you may want to do that you're skilled at, things that you enjoy, that if you weren't even getting paid, this is the thing for me, right? So, just kind of look at that, dream a little bit. Don't be afraid to move forward with that. Don't be afraid to dream, because you want to make sure that you are doing something that is not only going to be lucrative, but it's going to be something that you enjoy. Because again, if you don't enjoy your work, you will not show up to work, you will not sustain that, and you will not make any money, because, of course, you don't want to be there. So just make sure that you're really kind of taking some time to do that. Okay. And then please understand that looking for a job really is a job in and of itself. I understand that, sometimes when we are unemployed, we're like, I got to find a job, I got to jump, I got to do something. And I've got the kids and I've got the husband and I've got all these things. But if you take a look and say, okay, it really can't be just a byproduct, right? It has to be more of, this is a priority. Looking for a job really is a job by itself. So it's really important to dedicate the time, dedicate the organization. That way you're able to get get the type of results that you may be looking for and that, you deserve. And so still looking at conducting the job search. And so again, we're looking at moving from preparation to conducting. Now let's take a look at identifying job opportunities. Okay. there are a lot of different websites that we can refer to help look for job openings. One, of course, is the popular Indeed. Glassdoor is another one. I particularly like Glassdoor because they do vet their employers, and they also, there's not a lot of fluff on that website. Craigslist is something I believe is a little bit more social. Of course, I can't tell you not to use it, but it's not something that you think of primarily for employment. So just be careful with that. LinkedIn, of course, is the premier professional and networking site. So make sure that if you have not created a LinkedIn profile, that you do so like yesterday, because that is going to help you a lot. And then also look at best companies to work for, those types of lists. So that was one reason why I was referring back to Glassdoor, because they, again, vet their employers. They kind of make sure it's not a lot of inappropriate or, foolishness, I should say, when we're looking at those companies for the best companies to work for list. They're very straightforward. The information is really good and concise. And then also take a look at niche sites. So you can take a look at things like jobsandtrucks.com. You can look at NPO.net, which is nonprofitorganization.net. It does not necessarily mean that is all they have. That is the majority of their, of their opportunities. And so when you're looking at nonprofit organizations, again, stretch a little bit. Think about, do they need IT people? Do they need garbage people? Whatever it is that you may be looking to get into, don't shy away from it just because it looks like maybe that is not something that they would need, but there are so many moving parts to organizations that, things, they may need things that maybe they don't readily publicize. And then jobsandlogistics.com. So again, if we're looking at something in logistics or transportation, that's a really good website as well. And then jobsandmanufacturing.com. So if you're more of a person that is into not only logistics, but more warehousing, manufacturing type work, take a look at that. Dice.com, that's DICE.com. Take a look at that. Again, really inclusive site. And then also, don't be afraid to utilize temp agencies. I often tell a lot of my clients, sometimes we do what we have to do until we can do what we want to do, right? So you may have a longer term goal that says, hey, I want to, be a CDL driver, or I want to, do, whatever it is you want to do. But let's just take the example of the CDL driver. If someone says, I want to be a CDL driver, but I need to work right now, until you get that CDL Class A license, you still have to feed your family. You still have to feed yourself, right? You still have to cover living expenses. So sometimes temp agencies can kind of help bridge that gap. And then understand that a temp agency just is that. Now, of course, in an ideal world, we want it to, go ahead and calculate into, we wanted to go ahead and calculate into, permanent employment, right? We really do want that. However, it may not, and that's okay, because again, it has served its job. So just make sure that, you're understanding that, temp agencies do really have a place, and they can have a good place in your employment journey. And so as we continue from preparation to still conducting the job search, make sure that you look at networking. Consider who is in your network and build it. Like, don't be shy about that. It really sometimes really can make a difference between being employed and not being employed. One thing that you can do is you can post mass social media posts. You can also take a look at mass social media posts. The more information that you get, sometimes the better. Of course, filter out, all of the extra stuff. And then mass email, again, you may show that you are interested in a particular field or industry. Don't be afraid to send mass emails. Now, one thing I will say, just for safety purposes and privacy purposes, you want to make sure that you blind copy all of the people on there, because you will see their information, but they won't see each other's information. So you want to make sure that when you're doing a mass email, you blind copy all of the participants. You are blind copying all of the recipients, not CC, but BC. Okay, so just make note of that. Super important. And then, of course, LinkedIn. Again, that is the premier website or social media vehicle for networking. So again, you want to make sure that you are utilizing that, for your networking and for your employment search. Again, having a profile on LinkedIn can really be the difference between employment and not being employed. Okay. Now, this, of course, kind of leans into some of the things we've heard before, where they say 85% of positions are filled through networking. So sometimes it truly is true. It's not necessarily what you know, but who you know. So that's why it's really important to get to know people, right? Get to know them, start networking, make sure that they understand what you're trying to accomplish. You understand how they can help you do that, and then also what you offer. So again, you want to make sure that you are understanding literally 85%. That's a huge number, right? Of positions they are filled through networking. Be aware of that. Don't be afraid to, get yourself out there, of course, in a safe social media environment, but we want to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a position to where we can be seen and seen in a very positive light so that they understand that we are offering something. Okay. And then now we get to the point where we're talking about, we're still conducting the search, we're still moving ahead, right? We're not in the planning stage anymore. We're actually in that action phase. And now we're looking at submitting the application. So applications come in a lot of different ways. And so it's really important to understand, what is going on with the one that you are working on at the time. So some applications, they may be timed. Okay. So a lot of governmental sites are like that. Some things with the trades, they're timed. They want you to answer the questions and do so correctly in a certain time period. Okay. Make sure that you complete the cover letter before you begin. Okay. You want to make sure that that is done, because if it's timed and you're messing around trying to complete a cover letter, then of course that's going to deduct some of your time that you could have been answering the questions and likely gotten more correct than not. And so the other thing too is that before you start the application, make sure you open your references document that you previously created. Don't try to create it right then. Have those references available, okay? Because again, as I said in the beginning, we want to make sure we're not putting it on putting it on the resume. A lot of times people put it on the bottom of their resume on the back page and say references, references available upon request. Well, that's not a trend that they really are appreciating anymore. So just make sure you have a separate document. That way you can, provide those if needed. Okay. Make sure that you keep your resume open so you can cut and paste things easily. Okay. So you are moving in and out of the document easily so that you're not, again, taking time off of what would be, for you filling out the application or any type of, any type of test or anything like that that they may have you doing. You just want to make sure everything is nice, neat, concise, and timed appropriately. Make sure that you open your tracking sheet that you previously created. Okay. So again, this is that daily system we were talking about a little while ago, where you are creating a daily system so that it is so that you can keep up, right, with what you've done, the things you've accomplished, who you've talked to, what you've talked about, what the outcome of those interactions were, the dates and things like that. Okay. And then I think you'll also find that, the more that you do that, it'll become easier to track things, but also you'll get a sense of the types of jobs that you're looking at. You'll get a sense of, the responses and things like that. So, if maybe you're saying that over a month period, you're getting, maybe 20 or 30% follow-ups and then nothing happens after that, well, that's a little bit of a trend, right? That's some data that you can take and kind of look at and say, okay, what are some things I might need to tweak in order to, move that to a higher number and increase my chance of employment. Okay. So again, making sure that you create that daily system so that you are able to utilize that tracking sheet as you are going through the application process and keeping up with that. Okay. Make sure that you evaluate the search. Okay. So we, of course, have moved from preparation to action and conducting the search. And now we're kind of looking at the end of it, right? We're taking a look at evaluating the search. We are looking at assessing our strategy. How did we do when we were looking for a job? So some really good questions to ask yourself are, did you make finding a job into a job? Like, was it a priority, or was it something that maybe you just did on commercial breaks, right? You want to make sure that it's something that is a priority and that it takes just as much time to find a job as it is to work a job. Okay. Did you develop a daily system? Are you organized? Is this something that you paid attention to every day? Did you record these things every day? I know for me personally, sometimes I will write things down on a post-it note and there isn't a daily tracking system. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do with it? You don't want to be in that position. You want to make sure that you are developing a daily system, that you are recording the information on so that you can keep up with it. And also, you'll also find that that will help lessen anxiety because you're not trying to, constantly remember things. Okay. Also, were you realistic? If you are a person that maybe has a college degree, are you looking at things that require a doctorate? You have to be realistic in your search, right? You want to make sure that, you understand the type of employment that you are looking for and the requirements that go along with that. So you have to be realistic in that, understanding, is this a good fit for me? Is this something I actually have a skill to do? Is this something that I can prove that I have a skill to do? And then also, is this something, that I can, is it something that I currently know or something I can grow to know? So again, we want to make sure that we're realistic with some things so that we don't get ourselves in a position of now we're hired and now we can't move forward, or we end up back in the unemployment arena because we weren't realistic, because we weren't qualified to do we weren't to do the job that was set for. Okay. Did you consider all the possibilities? So again, some folks may say, hey, I want to work in transportation. Like, that's all I want to do. Okay, that's fine. But again, under transportation, there may be driving, there may be dispatch, there may be, instruction, a lot of different ways to get into um, transportation, but it doesn't necessarily mean, um, that is the end all be all, right? Driving or one specific thing is not just, the only thing we can do in that particular industry. So we want to make sure that we are considering all possibilities, okay? Because again, if nothing else, our bodies change as we get older. So the things we maybe could do at the beginning of a career interest are going to be a little bit different than what we end up doing, just because of things like that, aging or income or whatever it is. You want to make sure you're considering all the possibilities. And then it also gives you a good way to kind of look at promotion and succession and how to grow in your respective industry. Okay. Also, are you willing to change your approach? So if you are looking for a job in a specific way over an extended time, and maybe you're not yielding the results that you had hoped, then let's consider changing the approach. Okay. So let's look at that. Let's look at resume evaluation. Let's look at how we're speaking. And when we're talking about interviewing, just different follow-up questions that, maybe we should have when an employer asks, do we have any questions? All those things can really make a big difference. So changing your approach doesn't necessarily mean you have to rework your whole strategy, but it may be some little tweaks that might be important for you to be able to get to the next step, okay, and into subsequent employment. In general, let's just kind of wrap it all up, moving from, again, preparation to action to evaluation, and now just kind of summarizing everything, bringing it all in. Focus on what you can control. Your attitude, your engagement, your organization. Those are all things that we can control. Okay. So if we can control it, then let's do it. Okay. Know your skills, know your interests, know your goals. Okay. So no one knows you better than you. Take inventory of it. Don't just jot down, things that are really surface. Kind of take some time to kind of dig into that. Even if you take like 5 to 10 minutes a day and just think about, take one day and say, what are my skills? What am I good at? It could be things that you didn't even, that, people didn't really recognize you were good at, right? And so, that might be something to take a look at. What are your interests? What do you enjoy doing? We spend a lot of time at work. A lot of times we spend more time at work than we do with our own, families, right? So we have to take a look at, what do you like to do? What are you going to be happy doing? Take a look at that and try to align it with your goals, okay? Make sure that you're being realistic. Understand that, just because it's something that may be extremely lucrative, also understand that that may not be something that you're able to do because you may not have the credential yet, or you don't have the experience, or whatever it is. So let's be realistic when we're looking at that. It doesn't mean you can't get there. You're just not there right now, and that's okay. Okay. Also, again, have a structured approach. I am constantly learning how to reorganize myself. And I think this is something that all of us should really take some time to do. It's not necessarily the easiest thing, so I will let you know that. But understanding and appreciating to have a structured approach really does kind of help lessen anxiety. It really helps us to create, conquer our goals. And then we feel more accomplished. We feel more confident in moving to something that may be a little more challenging. Okay. And then also consider all the ways to search for a job. So, back in the day, our parents or our grandparents may have done what's called pound the pavement, right? They go out there, they dress up, and they spend all day going into places, asking, do they need help, looking for employment that way. Well, right now we have some advantages that maybe they didn't have previously. We have the internet, we have social media, we have all these wonderful tools. So go ahead and use them. Okay. So don't just waste time necessarily pounding the pavement going from place to place, but also, take a look at your social media, take a look at LinkedIn, look at job boards. If you want to physically go somewhere, because I know some folks are still old school, that is not a problem. Take a look at posted job boards or whatever you may need to do. Again, talk to people. Sometimes in very casual conversations, we find, our professional selves. And so that may be an avenue as well. How many times have we heard about somebody going golfing and then they end up with this amazing business opportunity? Or, I was at the barbecue, the family reunion, whatever it was, and you're speaking to someone that you don't normally get a chance to talk to. And, something great, something professional may come from that. So again, consider all the ways for you to search for a job. Okay. And then again, make sure that you understand the importance of networking. Really important, even whether it's informal or formal, just be aware of that, that any and all conversations really could lead to something great in employment or a professional, some sort of professional advantage. And then make sure as well, again, we're taking ownership of our job search. This is for us, this is for our families, and we have to make sure that we are taking ownership of that job search. It's nobody else's job to find a job for you. We assist, of course, if you have a career coach, that is a person that can assist. But again, we're just kind of, we're the driver's ed teacher with the brake on with the brake on the right side, right? But you're still driving the car. So make sure that you're taking ownership of your job search, because again, you are the person in charge of it. So we're helping, but we want to make sure that you understand that. Okay. So continuing the conversation, of course, if you have any questions, you can utilize the chat box to answer, to ask any questions. Make sure that you take a look at our website, which is E&ES program, and the location information that can be found on our website, our employment and employers website, excuse me, and that is www.eesforjobs.com. You can also take a look at the calendar of upcoming webinars while you're on there. And a lot of things that you see on there may not necessarily be job related. You may see some financial literacy, things about managing emotions and stressful times and things like that. They're all free for you to take advantage of. And so we definitely welcome you to utilize that as well. So if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and close everything out, and you enjoy the rest of your day. You take care.